Hello, welcome attendees and panelists to the 14th Congressional District Primary Forum. I'm Becky Simon with the League of Women Voters of Naperville. Tonight's event is a partnership with the League of Women Voters of Naperville, the League of Women Voters of DeKalb, and the League of Women Voters of the Aurora area. This forum will be posted on our voter guides Vote 411 and the Illinois Voter Guide. But first, let me introduce League of Women Voters. We are your friendly local civics geeks. League of Women Voters works to increase voter turnout. We register voters, we observe election processes, and because we are civics geeks, we have animated discussions about the latest trend in voting, ranked choice voting. Above all, League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. In our 102-year history, we have never supported or opposed a candidate for public office. Our moderators are thoroughly trained by our state organization, and in order to maintain strict nonpartisanship, the moderators always come from outside of the district that they are moderating in. So tonight's moderator does not live in the 14th Congressional District. With that, I will ask our candidates to turn on their cameras, and I will introduce Jan Dorner, President of the League of Women Voters of Elmhurst, our moderator for tonight. Jan?
Thank you, Becky. The League of Women Voters' purpose is to promote political responsibility through the informed and active participation of citizens in government. Providing this forum allows citizens to become better informed about the issues facing their community and to become better acquainted with the candidates running for office. We are happy to provide this service for the community. Questions have been collected from our members and the community before this forum and were screened for duplication, clarity, and appropriateness to the office being discussed. This forum is between the 5 candidates seeking to represent the Republicans for the 14th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives in the general election. The candidates have agreed to abide by the rules set forth prior to this forum, among them being that no voice, image, or other duplication of the forum may be used by any candidate's representative or campaign in any campaign advertising. Each candidate will present a 2-minute introductory statement. The order to start is alphabetical. Then questions will be asked and each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond in alternating order. Closing statements will be 2 minutes as well. There will be timer slides on the screen and I will ask you to adhere to these time limits. When you see the stop slide, you may finish your sentence, but we ask you to conclude. Candidates are expected to accurately represent the facts. The League of Women Voters is not responsible for the accuracy of statements made by candidates. It is the responsibility of the public, news media, opposing candidates et al. To fact check statements made by candidates if deemed necessary. Our candidates tonight are Scott Gryder, Mike Koolidge, Jack Lombardi II, James T. Jim Marter, and Jaime Milton. So let's start with our opening statement from candidate Gryder.
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this on and to my colleagues for joining us this evening. My name is Scott Gryder, and I'm asking for your vote on June 28th for the 14th Congressional District, or in early voting, which began today in our district. I am currently the chairman of the Kendall County Board, and I've done that for the last 6 years, and I've been on the county board for nearly 10 and served our community here in Oswego for the last 20. I'm married to my wife, Heather, and we have a daughter who just turned 12 on the 12th. We had a golden birthday that just came up. And, you know, one of the reasons that I'm running, or the big reason why I'm running, is I'm pro-business, I'm pro-family, I'm pro-freedom. And one of the things that I saw over the last several years is that our freedoms were being eroded, and it's time to have somebody that's going to fight for our taxpayers and fight for the people of the 14th District. We've done some great things in Kendall County over the last many years, and one of the first things that I did when I joined the board was pass a 10-point transparency plan that just kind of shined a light on the county, and it's something that has kind of guided us over those last years. Since I've been chairman, we have not raised the tax levy on our property taxes. That's the kind of thing that I'm going to take to Washington, D.C. We need to fight back against inflation. One of the big things that we see is right now is the what happens when you flood the market with too much money from Washington, D.C. And when I'm in Washington, that's something that we're going to fight against, and we're going to bring prosperity back here to the 14th Congressional District. So with that, I'd like to take a little bit of Kendall County with us to D.C. and thank you for the opportunity here tonight.
Thank you. Candidate Koolidge, your opening statement, please. You need to unmute.
Pardon me, not used to that. Inflation, crime, the border, parents' rights in schools, gas prices, now this baby formula shortage, possible international war. We have really serious things going on in this world and in this country. And we're in the middle of a political realignment right now. And the 14th Congressional District is as representative of the United States of America as any district in the country. My name is Mike Koolidge. I served for 6 years on active duty in the United States Army. I hosted a conservative radio show for 14 years. I've been very involved in my community in different boards, charity boards, where my wife and I, Joan, are very involved in our church in DeKalb. And I want to be your next congressman in Washington, D.C., because we need somebody who is going to stand up to the left and the way that they want to take this country. We will win this election on June 28th, and we will beat Lauren Underwood in the fall. I thank the League of Women Voters and all the other candidates running tonight, and I look forward to a spirited debate about the issues of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next opening statement comes from candidate Lombardi.
Thank you for the Women League of Voters. I really appreciate you having us on so that we can all discuss our platforms. And I thank you for what you do in your community as well. I'm not a professional politician or a professional candidate. I'm a Christian husband, father, lifelong martial artist, a business owner who looked around and said, there's something wrong with the direction of this country. We're going apart, we're not coming together. And as an American, no matter what our differences, now our society has been steered to look at our differences and not focus on our commonalities. This country is dividing, and as a father, I hate to see the direction it's going in because I have children. And I don't want my little girl or my son growing up in a hostile America. I don't want my daughter to grow up in an America where you're chastised for having a different view than anybody. This is not what being an American is about. I'm a business owner, like I said. I've stepped in because I can put an end to big tech censorship of conservatives. It's a conversation that needs to be had. If you agree or you don't, it doesn't matter. We still need to have these conversations. And this is a specialty of mine because of my entrepreneurship and where I could be the most impactful as your next congressman. I'm married to my wife, Sharon. I've been with her 10 years. I've been blessed with a little girl named Summer. That's who I was talking to earlier. They're going out to get some ice cream right now. I also have an 18-year-old son who I raised with my ex. My ex and I agreed for him to live with me when he was 8 years old. He's now 18, and I've taken care of him. So as a father, I'm very concerned with the direction of our country. As a businessman, I could see the mistakes that are being made in DC and inflation. Americans cannot afford to pay their bills. Single mothers can't afford to put gas in their cars or feed their children without any help. So this is something I can address. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Marter, your opening statement.
I'm Jim Marter, running for U.S. Congress in the 14th District to represent you. My beautiful wife, Jill, and I have been married 37 years this June 1st, both raised in Illinois. We raised our 4 children here, and we have grandchildren here now. We're staying to fight for Illinois. I am running for the same things that matter to you. That's to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These are the foundation of our American principles. These together, I have hope for a better future because I know together we can bring America back. Congresswoman Lauren Underwood does not agree with these principles. She votes with Pelosi and Biden 100% of the time. She has failed to denounce anti-American and anti-Semitic statements on the House floor. She has failed the economy. She has failed to control inflation, and she has put a burden on the American worker. So my plan is simple. Set our economy on a firm foundation of growth. Dismantle the Biden policies that have robbed us of energy and independence. Bring American energy back and American jobs, and stop the policies fueling inflation. Defend our rights and freedoms. Secure our border. Protect our votes, and protect our parents' rights for their children in our schools. In Congress, I will be relentless to cut the size and the scope of the federal government, end waste, fraud, and abuse, and balance the budget. I'm endorsed by Congresswoman Mary Miller, that's Illinois 15. She's 100% conservative. House Freedom Caucus, I will join the House Freedom Caucus with her, Jim Jordan, and the rest, because they're the group that's going to do what they say, do what they said when they were running, and put America on a firm foundation. So I'm Jim Marter, running for U.S. Congress to protect you, the American citizen first, to save America and the American dream. God bless you. God bless America.
Thank you. Candidate Milton, your opening statement, please.
Hi, my name is Jaime Milton. I am running for Congress in Illinois District 14. I'm an American patriot with conservative values, running as a Republican with the hope and belief that the 14th District of Illinois can represent its people and its values. I was born and raised in this great state. I am a wife, mother, and grandmother. My husband, Frank, and I have been together for 21 years. My husband serves the Sycamore and DeKalb areas of District 14 through waste removal services and as a carpenter, having built many of its homes. I have a diverse background, having survived inner city living, felt the weight of hardship, and have tasted success. I am well acquainted with the challenges found within the urban and rural populations. We are a middle-class, blue-collar and white-collar, multiracial family who believe in preserving and protecting the American dream. We are active members in our community and our church, having been on our faith journey now for 15 years. I have 25 years of experience in corporate America, with my last position held as vice president to a manufacturing facility serving the agricultural markets of North America. My experience spans over manufacturing, technology, and distribution to include imports and exports. I am well-rounded in having overseen all aspects of business, ensuring profitable outcomes as our economy has ebbed and flowed. I am running for office because it is my belief that the foundations of this nation are being dismantled. Opportunity for people to achieve the American dream is rapidly diminishing. As a mother and grandmother, I have grave concerns about the future of our children, and it's time to serve. I have the most diverse and far-reaching background to anyone running in this race, making me the most qualified to represent the diversity of people within the District 14 of Illinois. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's start with questions. Our first question goes to Mike Koolidge. What are the top 3 legislative issues you wish to address if you are elected?
The very first thing that everyone is dealing with right now, everyone on this screen, everyone watching at home, is prices, inflation. Everything's going up. People are afraid of what is about to happen to this economy. People are already talking about it becoming a recession. Some people think we're already in a recession. The government is spending money it doesn't have and hasn't spent and hasn't had for years. And we might be creeping slowly into international war. Inflation is the #1 issue facing this country right now, and that will be my #1 priority. And the way to get that inflation down is energy independence, the Keystone Pipeline, reissuing it. We have an incompetent administration right now that is just shrugging their shoulders and saying they can't do anything about inflation. What can we do? There's a ton of things we can do right now. And it starts with energy independence, securing the border. is the second huge priority. I visited the border with the Customs and Border Patrol last summer, and they told me two things. They said the wall works. It stops people from coming in, or at least hampers them. And the Remain in Mexico policy works. We need to do that as well. And finally, just government spending, not finally, but the third priority. We have a lot of things to do, but government spending. We need to shrink the size of government. We have no concept of how bad things are right now with our coffers in Washington, D.C., and we need to do everything we can to reduce the size of government. So those are my priorities in Congress, and I know that the American people are with me and with the Republican Party right now in getting those things done.
Thank you. Jack Lombardi, same question.
All right, there we are. Number one, inflation. We have to address inflation because Americans cannot afford their basic utilities at this point, their basic needs, grocery, utility bills, gas. American families are struggling. 2/3 of Americans are living check to check right now, and that's unacceptable. There's much that can be done in the way of policy that could soften this. And the next would be energy independence. We definitely need to renew those land leases that were canceled so that oil companies can drill American domestic oil for not only for how much it costs us to fill our gas tanks every day that all of us are feeling, but also to be good stewards of the planet, because shipping oil overseas is not good for the environment. All the tons of carbon that's emitted from tankers crossing our oceans is not in leading us in the right path. And third, and probably my second most important actually, would be to curb big tech censorship of conservatives, giving the voice back to conservatives and having an equal voice online so that Americans can communicate and sometimes have uncomfortable conversations, but at least Americans can have honest conversations. Those would be my three top legislative priorities when elected.
Thank you. Jim Marter, your top three legislative issues.
Thank you. So it's going to be a repeat of my opening statement, but here they go. Set the economy on a firm foundation, dismantle the Biden policies that were robbing us of energy independence, bring American energy back, and stop the policies fueling inflation. That's one. Defend our rights and freedoms, secure the border, build the wall, finish building the wall, protect our votes, and protect parents' rights in school. And then finally, cut the size and scope of the federal government, balance the budget, end waste, fraud, and abuse. So how do we do that? Let's start with the first one, the economy. So this as we've heard over and over again, and we see it every day. We see it at the gas pump. This is a tax on the American worker, out of control. The spending's out of control. I studied economics at Purdue University. My degree is in science, industrial management, minor in computer science along with that. And I've worked nationally and internationally. I've worked around the world. I work with people from all over the world every day. And the thing that I can tell you is I work with federal regulations. I see how they cripple and they cost money. Sarbanes-Oxley, Code of Federal Regulations, good manufacturing practice. Some of these are actually good things, but there are some things that are overwhelming our businesses. So we've got to stop. We've got to stop that. We got to put the Keystone XL back on the border, put American energy back, put American jobs first. So that's the economy summary. On the rights and freedoms, look, we've been under attack with big tech. With the government. We've got the government telling us what we can and can't do with respect to our medical privacy and medical freedom. This is not America. What happened these last 2 years needs to be stopped. And so these are the things that matter to me, and I'll be relentless, and I will be working hard with my colleagues in the House Freedom Caucus to make sure it's done.
Thank you. Jaime Milton, same question.
My top three issues are ensuring that we have integrity to our election process, securing our borders, and working on the economy. It is my belief that in order to protect our God-given rights outlined within the longest surviving constitution in the world, Integrity to our election process absolutely must be accomplished. We can do this by ensuring that our digital voting systems are removed off the internet and placed on an air-gapped server so that the results cannot be tampered with. We can certainly look at what steps need to be taken to ensure that there is accountability and traceability to any mail-in ballots that are coming in. And certainly voter ID absolutely is required. Voter ID is not a racist ideology. It is my belief that we can put forth other solutions like ensuring that every American citizen has access to an ID. So I certainly support voter ID. When it comes to our borders, we absolutely must complete the wall. We must ensure that Title 42 is reinstated. American citizens are faced with enough issues as we stand here today. We must fix the issues that are plaguing our American citizens. And that starts by ensuring that we have safety and security and sovereignty of this nation by ensuring that our borders are closed. My third issue is the economy. A strong economy ensures a strong nation. Every person on this call manages a budget. We all balance a checkbook. It is absolutely negligent and irresponsible that we have a federal government that is spending $23 trillion over budget. We've got to get this in check and under control so that our families can live prosperous lives. Thank you.
Thank you. And Scott Gryder.
Thank you. By far, the number one issue that we are facing right now is the cost of living increases that we're all facing, or inflation. The cost of gas is over $5 a gallon now. I've never seen it that high before. Butter, eggs, everything that we are currently buying is going up through the roof. I spoke to a landscaper who every aspect of his business has gone up. Fertilizer has doubled. His gas has gone up. The cost of paying wages to his employees has gone up. Every single part of it. And then he feels guilty passing those costs along to the ultimate end consumer. And the way for us to stop and to start getting better are numerous, but one is stop flooding the economy with free money from quote unquote free money from Washington, D.C. That's one of the biggest issues that is contributing to this. Stop trying to bring legislation like the Green New Deal, which you talk about something that's contributing to energy increase, that will do it. And we need to, speaking of energy, we need to continue with seeking ways to be energy independent. The 14th district has a significant nuclear energy capabilities, and I think almost 58% of the state of Illinois is powered by nuclear energy. It's very clean. It hasn't, we haven't had major issues with it, and it's something that we need to look at further. Number two, we have to secure our border. It's a matter of national security for us to do it, and we need to start by extending with Title 42. And number three, we need to protect our law enforcement. We need to protect our communities. And one of the things that we keep hearing is they want to bring the end to qualified immunity for our police officers. And that is one of the worst possible things we can do, to hold a police officer personally liable for what they do in the course of their job. I will fight against that for as long as I can, and as strongly as I can, and as loudly as I can. And so I think those are the top three issues facing us. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Lombardi, are you supportive of the current U.S. House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol? Why or why not?
Okay. What happened on January 6th was a protest that was hijacked by bad actors who need their day in court. That's for sure. Those who entered the building and caused harm to police officers, caused harm to the facility, need their day in court. The select committee, unfortunately, was partisan select. And something like this, when we're actually talking about something of this gravity, needs to be real bipartisan, picking for both sides, from Democrat and Republican, to get down to the bottom of it. So the way that it's organized right now, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. I would argue it both ways and be fair and say that you should have your pick for both heads of both sides of both parties. So as of right now, I don't support those who were selected, and to furthermore I believe that, it's kind of like rigged, the way that was done. It's not fair. And if it was the other way around, I would say the same thing. So that's my answer.
Thank you. Candidate Marter.
Look, it's a sham and a fraud. When you don't allow the Republican leadership to pick their own members of the committee, you kick them off, and then you pick the worst Republicans in name only, Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney and everyone else to participate in. It's a sham and a fraud. There's nothing good going to come out of this committee because there's nothing that they're not asking the right questions. What happened with the few hundred, I think it's 600, maybe a few more, I'm not sure the exact numbers, not sure we'll ever know that because this sham fraud committee is not doing their job right. Those people that attacked officers, that attacked the Capitol and attacked others, they deserve what they're going to get according to the law, and they deserve a trial, they deserve a speedy trial, and they deserve proper representation. They're not even getting that, by the way. One of the people that has already been brought in, this was a person who didn't really do any of the things I just mentioned and went into the Capitol because guess what? We saw the videos. It was wide open. They were letting people in. Who did that and why did they do that? Who canceled the peaceful protest that was scheduled on the Capitol lawn? Was that Nancy Pelosi? I want to know the answer to that. But again, I said it, the people that attacked it, disgusting, deplorable, they need to be the full extent of the law. And that's what they need to do. Look, everyone else there, hundreds of thousands were still at the president's speech when this thing started over at the Capitol. This started before his speech was even over. And it was before people were supposed to be there. So this is a constitutional process to protest the vote, the same thing the Democrats use for every Republican president for the last 40 years. Nancy Pelosi used it on, I think it was Alabama. So here we go. Let's talk about this in the proper way with the proper committee that's selected from both sides of the aisle.
Thank you. Candidate Milton.
Hello, thank you for the question. I agree that just as our juries are selected to be members of our peers, so committees also need to be representative of those of our peers. And so that means that we need equal representation on both sides of the aisle. This shouldn't even be a question that comes up. It should just be something that's understood. And I certainly would like answers to why this was not played out in this specific scenario. Certainly when it comes to the attacks on January 6th, anybody who, moved forward in violence needs to be prosecuted. They need to have their day in court. As far as the peaceful protesters that were there to protest what they believe to be an unfair election, we have our right as American citizens to exercise peaceful protest. So again, just to reiterate, the committee needs to be fair. We need representatives on both sides of the aisle so that the right questions are being asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Gryder.
Thank you. And let's be clear, this really is political gamesmanship at its worst. There was a protest on January 6th, but we're the party of law and order. And once they started breaking into the Capitol and committing other acts of violence, then that's where there is a line that was drawn. To the committee itself, there actually was a report that was issued by the U.S. Government Accountability Office on February 22nd of this year. And in it, there were 104 recommendations to address these deficiencies in security, including 200 security enhancements. And at this point, only 61 of those have been even implemented. So to me, that tells you that once again, that they're trying to keep this in the press so that they can do their best to drag Republicans in particular through the mud and because take the rest of the country's eye off the fact that they're paying $5 a gallon for gas. That they're paying through the roof for eggs and butter and milk and everything else that they're paying for. This is the worst type of gamesmanship. I think every one of us would agree that the security of our capital, the security of our cities are paramount. And let's see them take action on these 104 findings in a meaningful way and stop the political games.
Thank you. Candidate Koolidge.
The committee is completely illegitimate. it was put together, handpicked by Nancy Pelosi, and she chose people on that committee who she wanted. And it will be disbanded in January. And frankly, the fact that we have so many much more pressing issues going on in our country right now that we've talked about already, I think, with all due respect to everyone, we waste a lot of time talking about something from so long ago. There are still people that absolutely deserve their day in court, to be sure, but we need to talk about the issues right in front of our windshield right now, and we need to move on.
Thank you. Candidate Marter, in building a vibrant U.S. economy, would you emphasize reforming tax policies, addressing income equality, or something else?
So look, we fix the economy. As I mentioned, I studied economics at Purdue University. And there's one thing I recall, a direct quote from that first day on classes on campus, walked a mile across to the ag building for my Econ 101 class. And the professor said this, he said, there's no such thing as a free lunch. He went on the rest of that semester and the rest of my courses over my years there to explain exactly what that meant. And, you know, income equality is not part of the equation for freedom and our constitutional republic, okay? It would be nice to have it, but if you have everyone equal on income, then nothing else will be equal. So here we go. Let's work on the economy by cutting the size and scope of the federal government of things that it doesn't belong doing. Stop wasting our money, end the waste, fraud, and abuse coming out of Washington, and everybody knows it's there and everyone does it. We have corporate cronyism, and we have all kinds of laws where the federal government has intervened in the private market, starting with Obamacare back now, it's a decade and plus old. Every Republican Congress promised to get rid of it. And when they had the chance to do it, they balked and they didn't get the job done. And that's why we need someone who is a House Freedom Caucus member who will clean stuff up with the House Freedom Caucus, and we will take Washington back for the American people. I mean, it's real simple. When you start doing things correctly, that's how we put the economy on a firm foundation. We stop the nonsense of blocking American energy. Nuclear power was mentioned. Those things, I'm an all of the above energy guy. This is how we put Americans back to work, and it's how we fix the economy. So unleash the American energy business and cut the waste, fraud, and abuse in Washington.
Thank you. Candidate Milton.
Thank you. Yes, with regard to the economy, as I had stated earlier when discussing my top 3 issues, is that a strong economy ensures a strong nation. What is the one thing that crippled this nation more than anything else over the past few years? It was the unconstitutional lockdowns and mandates dictated by our federal government, where Costco was allowed to remain open and profitable, but our mom and pop shops were forced to be closed down. The federal government has absolutely no constitutional power to dictate such things that have hurt our families, hurt our businesses, and has caused people to lose their homes. I am a strong supporter of putting every federal program through the filter of the Constitution. And any program that is not supported by the US Constitution must be seriously looked at, dismantled, with those funds returning back to the state and, when applicable, back to the American worker. We must absolutely take a look within our district. There are several outlined opportunity zones that I look forward to supporting. We must increase economic opportunity to District 14 by ensuring that we are supporting these opportunity zones. And we absolutely must return to common sense budgeting. Again, it seems like so many of the issues that are taking place in our nation today is because we have simply walked away from common sense. We must return to common sense budgeting, walk away from the $23 trillion that we are overspending, work within the budget that we have. The answer is certainly not increasing taxes, because the government has been irresponsible with those funds. So thank you for your question.
Candidate Gryder.
Could you repeat the question?
Absolutely. In building a vibrant U.S. economy, Would you emphasize reforming tax policies, addressing income inequality, or something else?
Thank you. One of the first things that I would do would make permanent the Tax and Jobs Cut Act of 2017. You saw the kickstart that gave our economy, immediately creating 400,000 new jobs. The only reason that it slowed down was because of the many of these shutdowns across the economy. In fact, I find it insulting when I see Democrats and in particular Lauren Underwood taking credit for the fact that the economy is growing at the rate that it's growing. To hear her, it's never grown this fast before, and it's all self-imposed. It was growing at a breakneck speed when that act first went in, and there are many provisions that are set to sunset. I would continue that. I think we also need to make sure that we continue to look at our tax policy. One of the things that was done that made us competitive with the rest of the world is we lowered our corporate tax rate to 21%, which because of growth and innovation and that incentive. I think the number that I saw is our economy grew by $4.5 trillion as a result of that. And you don't raise taxes to make more; you lower it so that you encourage entrepreneurs and investors and businesses to grow. So I think that we can continue to reform our tax policy and make it better for business and for prosperity for everybody.
Thank you. Candidate Coolidge.
Yes, the Trump tax cuts of 2017 worked. And yes, reducing the corporate tax rate as well worked. I'm not a corporate guy. I grew up in a working class family. My dad is a postal worker. My mom is a librarian's assistant. And I got an ROTC scholarship to school and paid off all my student loans. But there are very big companies out there, and medium size and small, that employ people. And the old rule that Democrats say is, oh, well, they got to pay their fair share. We got to raise taxes. That's how we get out of this deficit mess. No, they don't even care about the deficit. They don't even care about the $30 trillion debt that our nation has right now. When the corporate tax rate was reduced, our economy grew way more than economists said it would. And we increased the revenue in our government. We actually were on the right path before COVID happened. And the problem with Democrats in charge right now, Lauren Underwood especially, she's part and parcel of the Biden administration. They do the exact opposite of what clearly needs to be done. And the country is just waiting for this fever to end. The Democrats kind of in charge right now in Washington, D.C. And it's going to end in the fall, and we're going to get this country on the right path again. But yes, it's going to start with reforming tax policies by reducing taxes across the board and reducing spending.
Thank you. Candidate Lombardi.
As a businessman over the last 25 years, there's a rule of thumb. Don't spend more that you're bringing in because you're going to go bankrupt. And the number one way to go bankrupt is to spend, it happens a little at a time and then all at once. And that's what's happening right now. It's happened a little at a time and now it's happening all at once. 40% of all the money that has been printed in the last 2 years. 2/3 of Americans are living check to check right now. And we are in a bad time. And now Democrats are talking about raising taxes on an already struggling economy and already struggling American people and citizens. And that's just wrong. What I would do is I would bring back the Trump era tax policies because the trickle down was working. It's proven. I would also go ahead and cut wasteful spending. There's lots of areas we could go in with a red pen and we could cut it out, or we could do it better. As a businessman, I'm going to tell you, we all know if you work with the government, you're paying about 3 times as much. And that's why we need more businessmen and women in Congress to fight for the better deals, because we are not getting the better deals. The people we have in Congress right now, more specifically on the other side of the aisle, just want to spend money. That's what they want to do. They want to raise the debt, and it's generational theft that our children and grandchildren are going to struggle to dig themselves out of. So my solution is bring American jobs back, put Americans back to work, and promote American energy independence. That's the way we're going to start back. Also, like I said, reenact Trump's tax policies, which had the trickle down effect. And again, it's very simple. Don't spend more than you're making. It's a simple equation. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Milton. What measures do you support to address climate change?
Regarding climate change, it's really important that we, ensure that our corporations are not polluting our air, polluting our water, those sorts of things. Certainly, each family has the ability to recycle and take their active part when it comes to climate change. But I'll be honest, lately, when I hear the word climate change, I hear reckless spending. This new Green Deal that has been proposed by AOC and the group there, we simply can't afford it. The fact that they are even having discussions about moving away from energy, which has been serving this nation very well for many, many years, and putting trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, furthering the debt of this nation, is irresponsible and foolish. This nation is hemorrhaging issues right now, and climate change simply isn't one of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Gryder.
Thank you. When I hear the term climate change and they talk about the federal level, what I hear is what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up? I'm a champion for realistic and innovative common sense strategies. That are embraced by the free market. And this conservative approach has clearly worked as the United States actually has reduced emissions more than the next 7 combined between 2005 and 2020. And what we need to be careful of is hamstringing ourselves and making ourselves less competitive than the rest of the world. The United States is always a champion for innovation and cutting edge, and we're leading the world in so many categories. But what we don't want to do is enter into these compacts with other countries that don't intend to follow their needs, to follow their end of the bargain. China has increased, I think it's almost 4-fold their emissions. And one of the consequences that we face, here in the 14th district in particular, is increased emissions. And you've got a John Deere that rolls off the assembly line in Des Moines, Iowa, and it's going to cost our farmers here in the 14th district more than it is to send it to Brazil because of emissions standards. And that's wrong. We should not be less competitive. We have to embolden and fight for our farmers and our the members of our residents, and not hamstring ourselves compared to the rest of the world. So I think that there are innovative approaches that we can take. We're already showed that we can, but we can't do so to the detriment of our businesses and our residents.
Thank you. Candidate Koolidge.
So we've had discussions about climate change a lot in my lifetime. I'm 47 years old, brought up as a huge issue in the 70s, I know, and then in the 80s and the 90s. I think everyone wants clean air, clean water, wants to protect wildlife, wants to be energy inefficient. There's no reason to create cars that pollute. Elon Musk is one of the most brilliant men on the planet right now. He's the richest I know too. And he's done this amazing thing by creating this company, Tesla, electric vehicles. Yes, they consume energy, but they don't pollute. And that's the free market working. We are doing a lot of great things to keep this environment clean. No one wants to litter or pollute. There's a lot of awful things happening in our cities right now, which I think are a lot of people are looking the other way at Democrat-run cities with litter and drug needles and just pollution everywhere there. But the Democrats, by and large, aren't interested in, I don't think, a lot of the elected Democrats I'm talking about, the people in Washington, D.C. right now, people like Lauren Underwood, they don't care about results. They care about passing something that feels good and placates the environmental extremists. And yes, there are environmental extremists who control so much of the Democrat Party right now. They get all of their opinions into the regulations, these greenwashed regulations, and they are in so many ways responsible for the current crisis we have right now, this inflation crisis. Because Joe Biden was listening to the environmental extremists, shutting down the Keystone Pipeline, stopping oil drilling, stopping fracking. That will, doing the opposite, again, of what the Democrats are doing right now, will get us back on the right path, and we're going to be just fine environmentally.
Thank you. Candidate Lombardi.
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Absolutely. What measures do you support to address climate change?
I'm all for renewable energy. I'm all for different forms of energy as long as it's American made and American produced, because it's going to support American jobs. This idea, this green bad deal that we've been dealing with, though it wasn't passed, we're still feeling the effects of the policy and the prejudice of the Biden administration against the oil companies, and we're seeing the pushback of that as well. And each and every American right now is feeling that. We cannot lose our competitive edge in the world market because we've overregulated our energy. Of course, I'm all for a stair-step approach into, renewable energy, into different energy sources and how we're going to provide energy for Americans. But this whole stick approach that the Biden administration is forcing us, saying, well, just go buy a Tesla. Well, the average American can't afford a Tesla. Matter of fact, the average American can barely afford their utilities and their grocery bill right now. And so it's very insensitive from the Biden administration to push it. And as a businessman and marketer, I draw caution to say, who's funding, who's the donors behind the Biden administration and many of the progressives like Lauren Underwood? Who's the people that's flipping the bill? Because a lot of them are working as salespeople to sell an idea that we're not exactly ready for. I mean, we're supposed to be good stewards of the planet. 100% as a father, I want to leave a clean planet to my children, your children, our grandchildren. But this approach that they're taking right now is just forcing it onto Americans, and that's not the right approach, and it's breaking the back of the American economy, and that is wrong.
Thank you. Candidate Marter?
So between the lawyers and the bartenders and the salesmen in Congress, I'm not sure they understand science. And I don't think Washington is the way to fix environmental policy. Look, I was a 15-year scout leader here in Oswego. I love the outdoors. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I love science and math. I have a bachelor's science degree, and got to study. And then in my career, 35 years in the working world with corporations, who, by the way, are doing a phenomenal job on reducing emissions and everything else both into the air and water. I've worked with these companies. I see what they do. There's always room for improvement on that front. So clean air, clean water, and a clean environment. I mean, who doesn't want that? I mean, that's conservative conservationism. That's a Republican principle. And so we need to take these things forward and do that in our local environments. But you know what? They used to call it weather. I guess back when I was in high school, it was global cooling. And then around Al Gore's time, it was global warming. And now it's climate change. I just think it's weather that we have out there. I'd rather us focus on clean air, clean water, and clean energy, and stop the madness with Washington trying to pick winners and losers and breaking our budgets and making bad decisions not based on science, not based on anything else. When I was in high school, we studied science, and they taught us a little process called photosynthesis, where it turns CO2 and water into energy and sugar and oxygen. It's called plant food, right? And now we have the Obama administration made that a toxic substance, and yet it represents less than 0.1% of our atmosphere with a whole bunch of other gases. So I think we got to get back to real science and stop the nonsense.
Thank you. Candidate Gryder, do you believe that reproductive rights should be the jurisdiction of the state or federal government?
Thank you. I think the initial answer to your question is a state's question through the 10th Amendment. If it came up through the the federal government, that's something that we need to push back to the states, and that's my answer. Yeah.
Thank you. Candidate Koolidge.
I am extremely happy that Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned this summer. It will put the abortion question back into the hands of individual states, democracy in action in our constitutional republic. I'm so heartened that we're going to have an actual debate about when the government has a duty to protect innocent life. At what stage does the government have a duty to step in? I believe it's at conception. Those of us who are pro-life are often asked this extreme question, what will you do in certain circumstances? I would love to see, and we need to move the discussion now to those who are pro-abortion. Are you okay with aborting a baby in the third trimester or the second trimester? In Illinois, that's the law right now. Not only that, the government pays for it in the state of Illinois. That's outrageous. And we can have and should have that discussion, that positive discussion. It is the literal most important thing, life. Nothing's more important. It's a really important debate to have, and let's have it. Let's not leave it up to the Supreme Court. Let's not leave it up to an unelected bureaucrat. Let's have the discussion. I have had very positive, great discussions on my radio show with fellow Americans who disagree with me about abortion. We can come to a conclusion about it. When does the government have a duty to protect the life of a human being? I believe it's at conception.
Thank you. Candidate Lombardi.
It goes back to the state. It should never been at the federal level. It goes back to the state. The state should have the right to govern its own people. With that said, I'm going to echo what Mike had said, that this is a great time to revisit this conversation and have an honest conversation this time with reference to when life begins and at what point should government intervene to protect the innocent. Let's face it, 75% of countries throughout the world have protected life after 12 weeks. We haven't even got to the point about what about able fathers who could financially care for these babies, as well as nurture them. As somebody that was a single father for many years, I understand the role and scope of parenting a child solo. And there's many men out there that have been denied that opportunity to father their child because law said that they were not as important. And if we need to get back to having fair conversations, and I am all ears to opposing views, of course. However, we need to have this conversation. But to answer your question directly, it is on the state level. It doesn't belong at the federal level. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Marter.
So our founding principles begin with life, capitalized, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. The most innocent of life is the child in a mother's womb. And it's our duty, it's our God-given duty to protect life. There are two individuals involved when a woman's pregnant, and it's the mother and the child. And we know medically in this day and age, we know that's a human life. And we know that there are ways to protect both. So I think first starting, we should love them both, not just the mom, not just the child, but both of them. And we should always protect life. Now, the Democrats, it's clear what they think, because they're ready to ram a Roe versus Wade federal bill right down our throats, right? So they think it should be done in Washington. And I'm not sure why Republicans are running away from that. I think if you look at it, the Hyde Amendment, that's a federal act that is supposed to stop the funding, taxpayer funding of abortions all around the country. And it's been stripped and robbed, and we're doing it today. So let's start with defunding all forms of abortion, because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the killing of a child in the mother's womb. And let's start with that very simple fact and put it back on the table to stop the funding abortion with my taxpayer dollars and all those pro-life people across America. So it's time that we protect the most innocent. I mean, if you ask the question, is slavery a states' rights issue? We fought a civil war over that because that's what people were arguing. It was a states' rights issue. This is a human rights issue, and the most innocent life, the child in the mother's womb, is one of the most important lives to protect.
Thank you. Candidate Milton.
I'm very thankful that I will live to see the day of the overturning of Roe versus Wade. This should have never been a federal issue, according to the Constitution. It is not man's right. And when I say man, I mean humankind. It is not humankind's right to determine or decide whether a child lives or dies. We are absolutely called as human beings to support life. It is my belief that we are each image bearers of our Creator. And there have been 63 million image bearers that have been slaughtered and murdered under our hand. It's absolutely devastating. What's equally as devastating is the trauma that the women walk through after walking through a service like abortion. And so what I would like to see is I advocate for programs and support services that support our struggling mothers and fathers that can help them to bring life into this world. Sometimes it's just an economic issue. Sometimes they just need the support of knowing that there are support services out there to help them bring life into the world. I also enforce support services of men who are suffering the loss of a child's life against their own will. And it is my belief that the child has a soul and a spirit and a body that has a destiny and a purpose, that this child is called to walk out on this earth. And it is not our right to steal that from that innocent life. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Koolidge, do you believe that the federal government should take steps to preserve voting rights? Why or why not?
Voting is one of the most sacred things we have as citizens, and the entire voting process should be protected and should be transparent. And when an election is complete, the population should be confident in the results. I'm very encouraged by what I'm seeing in other states that have passed some great voting integrity laws like Georgia and Texas. I'm disappointed in Illinois. I don't have a lot of optimism that Illinois is going to change their voting laws anytime soon to provide more voting integrity in our elections. Unfortunately, for this particular issue, the US Constitution allows states and states only to control the voting process and making sure that every vote counts and that people who vote are who they say they are. But I really like the direction we're going as a country towards that. Florida did a fantastic job from 2000. Those of you old enough to remember 2000, there were some problems in that election. And over time, Florida fixed their laws, corrected their laws, trial and error, and gotten better and better to now in Florida, people have confidence, generally speaking, in how the voting process is done. It was so unfortunate over the last couple of years since the 2020 election is there were tens of millions of people who had major problems with how things happened, and they were told to shut up. They were told, nope, you can't express your viewpoint. It's not valid. We should always be able to question government operations in this country at any level because the government works for us.
Thank you. Candidate Lombardi.
It's a state level issue. And I mean, having confidence in our elections is paramount to being an American or any nation, any established nation. So we must feel comfortable with it. The only part where I would be interested in considering federal interaction would be voter ID without stuffing that bill with provisions. Why can't we just have voter ID? I think the numbers are up to about 83%. Americans are reasonable people on both sides of the aisle, and there's no reason why we shouldn't have voter ID. We have to have it to buy cigarettes, to buy alcohol. We have to have it to buy a house or buy a car, or basic, necessities. You got to have an ID when you turn your gas on. You have to have an ID when you buy a phone. So why are we not, implementing voter ID, one straight bill, nothing else in it? No riders, no pork, no nothing. And if we can't do that, it goes back to the state, and the states have been doing a great job. There's some states I'm very proud of as well. And only American citizens should be voting in our elections, because being an American citizen is a privilege, and that's something we need to protect.
Thank you. Candidate Marter?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. Do you believe that the federal government should take steps to preserve voting rights? Why or why not?
Yeah, so I believe that our voting rights are one vote for one person, one American citizen, and we need to know that that actual vote counted. We need to know that somebody else didn't vote a vote that wasn't theirs, and we need to stop the fraud. Look, what happened in the last election cycle, and it's been going on for years, by the way. So real special example, DuPage County, 1,626 more votes found in the ballot box than actual people who showed up and checked in to vote, because we checked that off, right? Or sent in a vote by mail ballot with their name and address on the outside of it and their signature on it. So there we go. We do need to step in and fix this. And if it requires a constitutional amendment to fix it, I'm all for it. Voter ID, audit the vote. We need a right to audit our vote. None of the fraud in 2020 got adjudicated. None of it. It was all tossed out on technicalities, or not even really technicalities, by Democrat clerks, Democrat states attorneys, and Democrat attorney generals and judges who decided that, yeah, well, we're not going to let the candidate or the voters have a right to see what happened. As the Republican Party, twice elected Republican Party chairman in my county, I went to the county clerk's office and I said, look, we'd like to run a little audit here to see how our process works and how secure it is. Sorry, you can't do that. You can't see, even if we want to do an audit post-election of one or two precincts to see that the process that we could validate that the votes in that box, we can't even see them without a court order. Oh, and then by the way, you have to be able to prove fraud. How do you prove fraud when you can't see the process? We need eyes and ears on the whole process. People were denied the right to be a poll watcher. Election judges were kicked out of the room. Votes were counted when nobody was there on the other side of the aisle. It's a massive problem and it needs to be fixed. And
Thank you. Candidate Milton?
Should the government take steps to preserve voting rights? To vote in this country is absolutely a privilege. To be an American citizen is absolutely a privilege. Do we need to ensure that voting rights are preserved? Absolutely. But how is that exactly defined? It's defined by being able to prove your identification through a voter ID. I am certainly for coming up with solutions, ensuring that every American citizen has access to an ID. I think that that is a fair solution to voting. I'm certainly thankful that an ID is asked for before we board an airplane. Why would it be any different when it comes to our election process? Certainly for preserving voter rights by ensuring, again, as I've mentioned earlier on this call, that our digital voting systems are protected. The fact of the matter is our digital voting systems are on the internet right now, and they are highly vulnerable to cyber attack. We have to get it off the internet and get it onto a server where the results are protected and accountability in place. Accountability measures certainly need to be taken a look at when it comes to mail-in ballots. We've heard horror stories in local communities of ballots that were never even counted after the election results were in. This can't happen. And we certainly, want to encourage our neighbors to take part in the election process when it comes to having eyes and ears in the room. Just this week, I heard of stories from individuals where they're being told that they can't even apply to be a part of that process. Why is this happening? We've got to ensure that there is common sense being walked out when it comes to the integrity of our election process. It's vital in order to protect this republic that we currently live in. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Gryder.
Thank you. First off, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act is nothing but a partisan act that they're trying to jam through Congress that I would vote against. They're trying to say that it's advance fair elections, and really it would take us the other direction. To compare it to the Voting Rights Act is just disingenuous. The Voting Rights Act provided for equality under the law in our voting process, and this here is just a partisan grab to federalize our elections. I support local authority. The right of states to administer our elections within their borders it's really one of the most fundamental ways that we, as citizens, can engage, and impact national events. Passage of that act would strip the states and enable bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. In the Justice Department. It would embolden them, and so. To me, it's really a violation of federalism, and it sets a dangerous precedent. There are a few things that I think that we can do, and we need to clean up our voter rolls. I think presenting an ID is also something that we should look at. And the last thing is make sure that our election judges are properly trained and empowered and emboldened to do the right thing on election day.
Thank you. Candidate Lombardi, what are the most critical threats to our national security? How would you address them?
Well, our number one critical threat to national security is definitely cyber warfare, and then also propaganda coming into this country unfiltered in many ways. In one of them would be to go back and revisit the Smith and Modernization Act of 2012. Which originally after World War II prohibited propaganda to be distributed domestically, any anti-American sentiment propaganda to be distributed domestically. Then in 2012, it was rewritten where now it's allowed. And I don't know why or who had the bright idea to do something like that, but it's opened the doors for propaganda or foreign propaganda or domestic, people who have a domestic agenda, a domestic almost terror agenda, to distribute the propaganda which changes the thinking in society in America, which works against our American culture, which works against our Constitution. This is much of what we have seen in the last 10 years. It goes back to foreign propaganda. So I would say that as of right now is the biggest threat to our democracy.
Thank you. Candidate Marter.
So it's the current occupant of the White House who's allowed an invasion of our southern border to go rampant, unchecked, letting cartels and coyotes and the corrupt human trafficking that's going on come into our country unchecked and unstopped. Then you've got him giving $40 billion to a war that there are bad actors on both sides. The Ukrainian people, they deserve life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And what the Trump administration did provided them with the tools to actually defend that. That's why they're actually doing a decent job defending that. But we should not be funding that in a crisis where we have a crisis on our hand on the economy, and we're giving that much money to fund a war. And then the next thing the Biden administration is doing is giving back putting the Iran deal, the corrupt and illegitimate Iran deal back on the table, and letting the biggest terrorist nation in the world get funding again and let them unleash their network on the world again. I mean, these things are huge problems. It's all a direct result of what the Biden administration was doing. Their botched pullout of Afghanistan, leaving American military $85 billion worth of equipment. And guess what? Now they are the #1 arms dealer in the world, coming right out of Afghanistan, because that's what Biden did. And they're dealing our arms, our weapons, our military equipment, our knowledge, all over the world. They're selling it for money so they can fund their problems. These are the biggest threats to America right now. And it's because of the occupant of the White House. He needs to go. We need to end the corruption and the crisis that we have in Washington, D.C.
Thank you. Candidate Milton.
Our top two issues to national security, first and foremost, is the irresponsible spending that's happening in Washington. One of my greatest concerns is that we have lost our ability to protect ourselves as a nation because we simply can't afford to protect ourselves. We have lost the ability to come alongside other nations that need our help because we simply can't afford it. My concern is when we have not put America first policies first, it has put us in a very vulnerable and dangerous position with countries like China. And so we've got to return again back to common sense budgeting, get our budgets under control so that we can bolster up our military and have the ability to protect ourselves as a sovereign nation. A nation that's gone broke is a nation that can't defend itself. And that's a huge concern and a huge issue. The second thing is absolutely the border control issue. We know that we have fentanyl coming through the border. We know that we are hearing devastating reports of little girls being raped at the border. This should concern every citizen of this nation. And we know that we have terrorists that are being caught coming through the border. And those are the only ones that we know of. I think the last time I looked at the numbers, it was just shy of 30 people. And again, only the ones that we have caught so far. Why on God's green earth would any government be willing and open to leave our borders wide open unless there is some sort of sinister plan taking place? We've got to complete the wall. We've got to reinstate Title 42. And another thing that I would really like answers to in the midst of a baby formula shortage, why are we seeing that baby formula is being housed in warehouses on pallets being given out at the border when the mothers of this nation are finding it difficult to feed American children? It absolutely makes no sense. Thank you.
Candidate Gryder.
Thank you. The number one issue I see, or at least maybe not in particular order here, but state-sponsored terrorism continues to be a top issue with Iran and North Korea as leading threat. The Iranian nuclear deal should not be re-entered, period. But even more is one of the conditions that they're throwing out is that the Revolutionary Guard should be taken off the terrorist list, and they're responsible for the death of American servicemen in Iraq. And that shouldn't happen. The other big issue that we're facing is cybercrime. China and Russia in particular are increasingly coordinating cyber attacks, and the damage that they can do is going to be far different than what we have seen in traditional warfare. And I can't overstate enough the danger that they pose.
Thank you. Candidate Coolidge.
So thinking back to the 90s, when I was an ROTC cadet at Boston University, the 90s were a relatively peaceful time. There was the Desert Storm, which was, 100-day war or so. And September 11th hadn't happened yet, obviously. And remember, fellow cadets were talking about, oh, what are we going to do in the military? I mean, was it an extreme sort of drawdown? And next thing you know, September 11th happened. The world changed. I was about to get out of the military. I decided to stay in for an extra 2 years because I wanted to be a part of the reaction to it. And I was in the beginning of Operation Iraqi Freedom in Kuwait and Iraq. And if you asked me then, or even 15 years ago, I'd say Islamist extremism and terrorism. That's our biggest national security threat. But when you elect someone to Congress, you want them to be constantly thinking and reevaluating and changing and looking at the world as it is right now. And there are too many people in Washington, D.C. right now who are sort of in lockstep with each other, like little ducklings following each other down a war path where we don't necessarily need to go down. You don't have to have served in the military to love your country, but it does help when you're questioning a 4-star general or a defense secretary on what the heck they're doing with our brave men and women. Should our brave men and women deploy overseas to protect this country? Perhaps, if we're directly attacked. But you know where national security starts? Our own borders. And our southern border right now is a sieve. and it's about to get really, really worse this summer. They're talking about 250,000 people by the end of this year, and I might be underestimating that number. That's where it absolutely starts. Is China a threat? Yes. Is Russia a threat? Yes. Is North Korea a threat? Sure. And Islamist extremism, they say ISIS-K is rearing its head again. But national security starts at our borders.
Thank you. Let's move to closing statements, and we'll start with James T. Jim Marter for the closing statement. 2 minutes.
All right, so we're in the midst of a national crisis here with the economy. We're in the midst of a world crisis with wars raging out there. And we're in the midst of really an electoral crisis with what's been going on the last couple of years here in the United States. And open borders, energy being shut down, shuttered by the Biden administration. And it's time, again, we have to get back and put our economy on a firm foundation. Lauren Underwood's been voting 100% of the time with Pelosi and Biden. She has voted with all these policies that are fueling inflation. And my children, my grandchildren, your children and grandchildren, they should not be paying the price for things that are going on today. And we have to stop robbing from their future. So I'm here to tell you that we need to put our economy on a firm foundation, dismantle those policies, put American energy back on the table, the Keystone XL pipeline, put American jobs first, protect our freedoms, protect our votes, protect our parents' rights with the assault in the schools from the CRT, the 1619 Project, and the sexual indoctrination going on that's being pushed on them. And finally, just we need to balance the budget and stop the waste, fraud, and abuse in Congress. So I'm Jim Marter. I'm running for U.S. Congress in the 14th District to put you, the American citizen, first, to save America and save the American dream. And God bless you. God bless America. Get out there and vote. Who we send to Congress matters. Vote this June 28th. Vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Jaime Milton, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. My mouse was a little bit stuck there. Apologies for that. Listen, as I think about the division that is taking place in our nation right now, we absolutely must look for the things that unite us as a human race. We need to really stop looking at the things that divide us and begin looking at the things that unite us. I am all for opening up dialogue with our neighbors, finding common ground, having communication with one another and how we can support each other, encourage each other and our families. We must absolutely begin to rebuild our communities, and we must protect our children and our families. I am gravely concerned with what is taking place in the education system today. I am for school choice. When the school does well, or I should say when the child does well, the school does well. And our children are absolutely our future. We have got to protect our children. As a mother and grandmother, I look at my granddaughter and wonder what kind of nation she will be growing up in. We've got to get back to the basics of loving and caring for one another as human beings. I think that the success of this nation depends on our ability to unite as a nation. I love people and I have a deep desire to see our communities prosper. As an individual, I am an advocate and a justice warrior, and certainly have a heart to advocate for our communities and the things that matter to each and every one of us. I am running for Congress and certainly would love your support and hope to have earned your trust in standing up for what is right and opposing what is wrong. Jaime Milton, U.S. Congress, District 14. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Gryder, your closing statement.
Thank you. I'm Scott Gryder, and I'm asking for your vote to be the Republican nominee for the 14th Congressional District. I step forward because the country that I love, the people of the Illinois 14th District, are being failed by current Democratic leadership in Washington. And that includes Lauren Underwood, who is following lockstep with the Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden agenda. And they must be held accountable for the misguided policies that they're undertaking to mask a leftist agenda. And I'm going to do that. I will fight that when I go to DC. I'm a proven leader. On the Kendall County Board, my principled pragmatism and ability to forge consensus earned the confidence of my colleagues who elected me as a vice chair and then 3 times as the chairman. I fought to control taxes for our homeowners who elected and small businesses. I increased transparency and efficiency in government to produce significant taxpayer savings. And we need somebody like that to fight inflationary practices in Washington, D.C. We need to become energy independent. We need to empower our citizens. I'm proud of our record. And in Congress, every day that I serve, I will spend tackling the hard jobs on behalf of the citizens who've entrusted me to deliver the reform that we so desperately need and improve our quality of life. So once again, I'm Scott Gryder. I want to be a Republican nominee for the 14th Congressional District. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Coolidge, your closing statement.
Yes, thank you, Jan and Susan and Becky and everyone else, all the other candidates and the League of Women Voters for inviting us here tonight and providing this forum for us. You've heard from the other candidates and you're going to vote on June 28th. And who are you going to vote for? Who are you going to choose? We do have a choice. If we make the wrong one, we're going to be stuck on November 9th with far left Democrat Lauren Underwood. Democrats are going to be in the minority and our representative will be a Democrat. And we won't have the say that we can and will have if we make the right choice on June 28th. We've talked about a lot of the problems in our country right now, and there are a lot of problems, but I have immense optimism about this next decade in the United States. We are in the middle of a political shift right now, and it's awesome and it's inspiring. People are waking up, and it starts this November. Don't you want someone in Washington, D.C. who isn't just going to stop all the awful stuff the left is trying to do, but set the agenda going for these next 10 years? We can do it. And I ask for your vote on June 28th. I am the only candidate, Mike Coolidge, that can beat Lauren Underwood, and I will. Coolidge is spelled with a K. I sincerely hope you vote for me on June 28th. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Lombardi II, your closing statement.
Thank you. Thank you to the Women Leagues of Voters for having us. Thank you to the candidates for all showing it up and speaking. As a father of multiracial children, I want to see the United States of America come back together. We've been going in the wrong direction. We've been separating so far that it's not even like the America that I knew or we knew when we were younger. And that needs to be fixed. And it needs to happen with common sense, compassion, in remembering that at the end of the day, we're all brothers and sisters in this great nation. As a businessman, I have grown sick and tired of watching out of control spending. I've grown tired of watching those in DC waste our hard-earned taxpayer dollars, the dollars that you have struggled so hard to pay to our federal government, for them just to waste it with really no report back to the citizens. As your next congressman, I will report back to you and tell you what the heck is actually happening in DC. I will give you an open line and honesty of what's happening there and what you need to know about your federal government, because after all, it is in the title representative. On June 28th, you're going to have a choice of who to pick. I would ask that you consider who's going to run against Lauren Underwood, who you could see to actually take on Lauren Underwood and win, so we could get rid of this crazy progressive policies of voting with Joe Biden 100% of the time, because I promise you, we can all not afford 2 more years of that. My name is Jack Lombardi. I'm running to be your congressman in the 14th district and your representative in DC to answer to you. God bless you. God bless America. And thank you, everyone watching.
Thank you. Our time is up for this forum. For further election information, please see the illinoisvoterguide.org, powered by the League of Women Voters of Illinois, or consult LWV US's Vote 411 online voter guide. Both are 100% nonpartisan election information you need. A link to this recording will be offered to each sponsoring league for their use. Go to your local area league website for more information. We appreciate your participation, whether you are a candidate or a voter. It is essential to preserving our freedom and our country. Please remember to vote, whether it is by vote by mail, early voting, or on election day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night. I think, are we done?